The way we understand home is the way we understand space. Depending on how we grow up and how we experience different versions of what a home can be, we develop different understandings of space. Home is a space to have some ownership over, and the things that we choose to keep there and to surround ourselves with allow us to assert and build around who we are and what we value. This connects to the way that we behave in all spaces because it defines what we are comfortable with and what makes a space suit our needs. It influences how we occupy space beyond our homes, how much of it we're willing to claim for ourselves, and how much we'll leave to others. Thus, home and space are not strictly physical things, but rather are concepts that we carry and manifest wherever we go, whether at home, in a classroom, or a conversation. This project started by more generally exploring the idea of space and how different people relate to this space around them in different ways. I was considering this from a few different perspectives. I was thinking about social, creative, professional, physical, and many other kinds of spaces. This broad concept led me to a few different forms of exploration. In the very beginning stages of this process, I looked at my bedroom as a creative space, and that having a room in which you can be isolated and can think without disruption allows individuals to find a liberated, creative mindset. I spent a few weeks creating work, isolated in my bedroom, and recorded the process and documented the things that I made. I compiled all of this research into a book that acts as field notes where I'm emphasizing the process that I engaged with more so than the work that I was producing. In addition to conducting series of visual explorations as a research method, I felt that it was important for me to also be looking at outside resources that talk about the idea of space from different perspectives. All of this research was compiled into this book, which includes notes of my own in the margins. These texts include excerpts from literary sources, articles, TED Talks, and everything in between. The purpose of this research in the context of my thesis process was to explore different avenues that I could go down in order to specify my topic. While collecting all of this research, I was simultaneously creating a separate project that started to think more about the idea of a shared space and how people negotiate the space that they occupy in relation to others. I wanted to explore methods of creating an immersive and interactive installation that would force participants to become more conscious of how their actions and movements impact others. I built a wall installation that has 52 wooden tabs with questions laser cut into the wood. Each tab is connected to one another by a string, so that when you pull one down to read it, the connected tab is pulled up. This installation is intended to engage groups of people so that when someone pulls a tab out of someone else's hand, or that tab moves in front of their faces, those two individuals will engage with each other to make sense of how they are sharing that space. With the expectation that we would have a normal thesis exhibition with a gallery opening and crowds of visitors, I wanted to expand upon this project by making it larger and more physically immersive, with these tabs hanging from above. However, under new circumstances, our thesis show was canceled and is now being replaced with an online exhibition. Because of this transition, I, along with other art students, have had to table my initial vision, save it for another day, and reinvent my project for this new medium. This was frustrating, disappointing, and upsetting. In the process of going back to the drawing board and thinking of an entirely new output, I occupied myself by documenting my house. I took pictures, videos, and audio recordings of my house at all hours of the day and began to shift my line of thinking towards how my home, and all homes are spaces of negotiation too. In my home especially, where my parents come from two different cultures, they have made room in our house to include elements of both of their upbringings and have negotiated to some extent how home is meant to look and feel. I think that people carry a unique idea of what home is with them, and throughout their life, having had different experiences, they change the way that they build home around them. By documenting my own home, I hope to uncover some of the traces that my parents have left behind in what they have built over the past 20 years. I was also interested in looking closely at the objects we have scattered throughout our homes specifically. My family has a hard time throwing anything away, afraid to lose something with potential sentimental value. There are countless objects throughout our house that have been placed on a shelf, in a corner, or on the wall, and that haven't been moved or touched in years. Those objects almost feel like they're a part of the walls, in the sense that we know they're there. We don't think of them much, but we couldn't imagine our house without them. I'm interested in unearthing those things, reinterpreting them, and sending them back out into the world for others. I ultimately decided to, for my final piece, code an HTML page that would house all of this documentation and more. What you're seeing here is a simple HTML page with words and phrases that I wrote in relation to the idea of home, and each line is a link to something. The user is not meant to know what each word might lead to, and the only action item in this page, other than scrolling through it, is to click on each link. The majority of these words, when triggered, will download a zip file in the user's computer. These files will contain varying items. Some will be personal moments from my own documentation, and some will feel more universal and be more interactive. The idea is that people don't know what they're getting every time they click. This action also calls into question what it means to bring something into your own home. It draws a parallel between the interaction of the outside world and your personal space, and your internet browser and your desktop. I was also interested in how I am sifting through elements of my own home, sending them into the world, and allowing individuals to download and own files that reveal something personal about myself. This website serves many functions. In one sense, it archives objects and moments of my house and feels personally important. In another sense, it forces users to consider what their home means to them and what they are willing to bring into their personal space. Some of the files will include instructions for the user. The example pulled up here is a template that the user can fill out if they're having a hard time writing a letter to a loved one that they need to check in on. Interactive components like these extend the significance of the piece beyond a simple documentation of my own home, but will also allow users to more actively think about home in a more personal way. Some of the links on the page will also link to a new email with my address filled in. This prompts users not only to consume media on my site, but will offer them an opportunity to send something back. This allows the website to progressively begin defining and documenting not only my own home, but also the home of others, and it allows the page to be a living, breathing, and ever-changing document. The ultimate message that I want people to take away from this piece is that home is so individual and personal, but the construction of it is universal. Understanding how you have built your home is important to understanding what has unconsciously become important and significant to you. There are a lot more parts to your home that reveal something about you than you might think. It's not just the photo albums you keep or the old sweaters that you hold on to. It's also the dried up pens that you keep in a drawer, the London double-decker piggy bank you have on the basement windowsill, or that copy of Twilight you've shamefully stored in the corner of your attic. Making connections to how others have constructed their homes encourages people to think more closely and more appreciatively of what their own surroundings look like.